It seems to be, well, it seems to be one of the harder modules to pass. One major reason is because you're kind of going through, the day. If you've done this, you go through the day, and it's stressful, it's long, and you get to this part, and it comes to a screeching halt because you have a lot of. First, you have to read the plan, how it looks. Then you have to actually do the project itself, and that consists of actually, it's kind of labor intensive. Not that hard when you look at it from this perspective, and that's what we're kind of trying to do. We're trying to break it down because the guys will come up, they'll look at it, the piece of paper, look at me or Bob, the piece of paper, look at the area, and kind of draw a blank. And again, the reason why you're drawing a blank, or the guys are drawing a blank, main reason is because they're tired and fatigued. So the biggest thing is, it's like I said, it's not hard. It's not a hard test. One of the major factors why guys fail this, right off the bat, from Jump Street, they forget the safety portion of it. If we haven't cut a paver, if we haven't used the tamper, they forget to use the ear, eyes, and the mask. When you're on the job, you may or may not be using these. We know that. However, during this exam, safety is always the key. It's one of the bigger issues that's involved. So when we're looking at it, we're saying, okay, Bob and I will be judging it, and the minute they forget the ears, that's major points off right there. You get 2 infractions like that as you're going along, and you've pretty much failed the test, and you're going to be finishing your job, but you're going to get later on, 6 weeks down, whatever it is, 6 weeks down the road, you're going to get a failure notice that says, oh, well, you failed the test.
You want to hand with that, Derek?
Yeah.
Isn't it disqualification? Somebody help them. Derek, do you get disqualified if you don't do this?
No, you don't get disqualified. You don't get automatic disqualification. The only way you get automatic disqualification is if you're cutting the pavers in a dangerous manner. So if you get the saw and you start, jamming on it with your foot, and the blade's coming right next to you, and you're using that as a guideline. Yeah, we're going to pretty much shut it down and stop you there. If you get to a point where you really kind of don't know what you're doing, and you're sort of wasting time, we're going to let you keep going because, well, there's no reason why not to. You're not showing any danger. The major disqualification happens when you get to a point where there's really not a whole lot left you can do. All right, the first thing is there's going to be a load of puke that's sitting there waiting for you. You basically are going to have to fill up the box. All right, you're basically going to have to fill up the box. Now, the only difference here is that there won't be any side rails. There's just going to be a header box for this. But in the interest of making this as easy as possible, easy to see as possible, we've added a header, I've added just 2 side rails to it. So as you're going to be asked to now fill this up. You have about, I think you have an hour to do this. You have an hour. This is one of the longer parts of the exam, so you have about an hour to do this. At least 50 minutes.
80 minutes.
Is it
80 minutes.
All right, so you have 80 minutes to do this. So, you're pretty much, again, as you can see, it's taking 2 guys now to fill just that much. In that much time, it takes that much time. So now it's not going to be bagged like this. We're going to have open aggregate, so you'll have a little bit easier time. But as the day wears on, the sand mixes. Then when we have the guys break it down, because it's not just setting it up, it's also breaking it down, taking this and putting it back into a pile. When that happens, it ends up, again, a lot of guys fail because they don't finish cleaning up. They'll lose points on that. So all these little points that you're getting, deductions, you forget to put your eye. I mean, the biggest thing is safety. So obviously, if you're doing the safety portion right, you're all right. Then, as you're building this up, we're building with a pitch. So again, you want basically a 2% fall. Pitch. Yeah, the pitch. No, it's a 2% fall that we're saying. 2%. So you're looking at basically about a half-inch pitch from top to bottom. Now the other thing too is you want to look at is that in the directions it tells you how to lay the pavers. Guys fail because they lay the pavers the wrong way. So I mean, again, Bob and I we were judging the exam one year. One guy passed, and we had about 17 applicants come through. So one guy passed out of 17 applicants, and it was, it's not, you can't help them, you can't, give them any clues. So the biggest thing I say is mind what you're doing when you're looking at the brochure now, or looking at the paper, because the paper will tell you, they'll show you where the header is. It'll say the header's going this way, and the pavers are supposed to run this particular way or that way, whatever way it has on there. It's usually a running bond. The running bond goes from the header down, and it's running. The joints are going to run along, this sun sideways. Yeah.
Is it lunch away?
So again, now we get this in. You get this in place. You're going to have all the tools there for you. You're not going to have to bring anything except your safety goggles and we even have those there if you don't have them. Once everything is now raked into place, you have the correct pitch. Again, we'll have the rails. We'll have the stakes put in place for you. So if you need them, we'll have these. Again, it's an old mason trick because we're not going to have a transit there. So the old mason trick is run a string line, measure it, and then you have your pitch top to bottom going. Obviously how that works. The higher on this side going down, lower being on this end. So we'll have string runs for you. We're going to ask to see this as you're doing this. So again, you're going to have an area that's going to be a little larger than what we're doing. It's just close to it, but it's going to be a little larger. So the big thing is you want to put
This string's 30 years old.
oh, it's all good.
Still works. First kite. Derek, how do you figure the 2% with them?
All right, what we're going to do is this. There is what we need to do is we got to get a line level. All right, what we're going to do is we want to have a line level which you will be provided with. We're going to stick a line level on here, and it's going to be even. Once it's even and it's basically you see that the string is level. Then we're going to ask that you obviously show us a measurement from top to bottom. Again, about a half inch. So if this would be say 4 inches here, we'd want it to be about 3 1/4 inches down this way. All right, so about a quarter inch. I think it's more of a quarter inch to a percentage. Yeah. So it's about a 1/4 inch. So we'd want to have a 1/4 inch drop, and use that with your. There you go, Bob.
Do you give them a level, a 4-foot level also, or just?
We have a 2-foot level there usually. Yeah, we'll have levels there. We'll have, again, a lot of stuff. All you need to do is bring yourself and your tool and basically the safety equipment you have with you. Now we're going to ask that you now again compact it all the way around. Now again, we realize this is not exactly the ideal situation for you because when you're compacting this, the idea is to really get as close to 95% modified Proctor density as possible. You ain't getting that with a hand tamper. We realize that, but we have to go through the steps to at least show that we know that you compact the pavers because they need to be compacted. The other thing too is with the compaction, we will have a compactor usually on the side for you to run the compactor. Do we still do that? Yeah, so we still have the compactor on the side. When we ask you to run the compactor, if you tried to run a compactor in this area, the paver, the QP would just start pushing out, and you basically it'd be a mess. So we don't ask you to do that. We have you run it on the side, and basically to show that you're competent using the machinery. But you can start it. You check the check the fuel levels, make sure that everything is running properly. We also make sure that when you're running it, you're using your ear protection, your eye protection, and your mouth protection. So again, that's the part that you get killed on. If you're running this and you don't use the safety, all right, I'm just gonna have you run the machine, and it's usually this way. All right, good. I'm checking the oil. I'm checking the gas. I make sure everything is good in place. All right, good. Okay, start up and get her going. The guy's ear protection is up on top of his head like this. His glasses are maybe around his neck because he's, again, he's tired. It's fatigue. Goes in, starts it up. He runs it. Hey, look at this. I can run it. I can run the machine. Boom, boom, boom. I'm done. All right, shut it off. Look, shut it off. Everything's good. And meanwhile, everything is still on top of his head. His glasses are on the side. He's not wearing any mouth protection. And right there, you're losing points on every one of those aspects of it. So it stinks, but that's just how it is. It's got, we're asking for very little. Unfortunately, it's a lot for you, but we're asking very little in this module. Then once we get to this point, we have the screed rails all set up, and then we get to the sand portion of it. So you can pull these out.
How would you actually set the screed rails to make sure that they're at the same 2%?
Well, it should automatically, the base should automatically set. So you should be all set to go. With the screed rails that we'll provide, it will be as long as you need for the width or the length of the area, and the actual screed rail itself will be, the screed itself will be pretty much as wide as the area. So there's not going to be a lot to think about when you're doing it. That's the good part. If you've done the pits properly, these things are just going to fall kind of right into place. You're not going to have to worry about, because everything will be pitched properly, lay it out, and you're ready to rock. So now you just add the sand. Again, the sand will be there for you already. And at this point, you're pretty much you're kind of in rush mode, because now if you've been overthinking everything, and you're going back to the picture, and you're looking at the picture, and you're looking at the time. This is all of a sudden, now you look up and you're like, all right, 10 minutes in the module, and you hear that 10-minute warning and you start to panic, because that's part of it also. I mean, you're working under pressure. You could still get this done in 10 minutes because it's not that big of an area, but you gotta, all right, take that back. If it's 10 minutes and you're just on the screeding, yeah, you're pretty much done, because it takes a little more next. We haven't even laid the pavers. So once we've added the sand, now, I think one of the things, the hardest things, which would be is seeing guys that taking the exam, and you can't say anything to them because it's not. Again, you're seeing as we're going along now. Now it's again, time is starting to wind down. At this point, realistically, you should be about 30 minutes. There should be about 30 minutes left of this module. And that's and some guys fly through it. Some guys are done. It takes them one mod. Like one of the takes them a half hour to do this, because again, they know they get in. It's an inch. You don't even have to worry about it. We already know it's an inch because the these boards should be just about an inch. You want it to go anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half at the most, and that's pretty much where we're sitting. With these particular screed rails.
Derek, are
Yes.
they putting edge restraints in also when they're doing the test?
Yeah, at the end
Because they don't have the sidebars.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. At the end, once we add the pavers, you can put the edge restraint in first if you want. It's kind of up to you. It doesn't really matter on our end. But when you're doing the module, part of it too is you want to make sure that you leave enough space with the QP so that you can add the edge restraints on the side. That's another good pitfall where guys fail. They forget to use the edge restraint, or they forget they don't have enough QP on the side to put the edge restraint. And they just jam it right in. They try and jam it in.
I mean, Derek, do the braiding and drainage. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for.
We're looking for a competent knowledge that you know what you're doing. Again, at this point, if there's little rubs here, again, you could be as anal as you want. It's just eating up more time. We know guys how good they are when they're doing this. I mean, they look at the plan, they get right to it, and they start laying pages. And this is how quick it is. Once it's in place, now you just start laying the pavers. And now when you start hearing, you start hearing, I think they still give half hour. Yeah, they'll tell you that, probably about a half hour. So at this point, if you're laying pavers and you hear 30-minute warning, you're fine. You're home free. So guys, this is the easy part. Laying the pavers. You'll already have pre-cut pavers. We'll ask you to use the saw to cut a piece because we want to see how safe you are cutting pavers. And again, failure comes from not ears, no mouth, and no eye protection.
You mean like what Bob is doing?
Well, no, he's not cutting a paver yet.
Oh.
You're the mouth.
There's no protection for that.
Now, you're not going to have to actually compact every stone as Bob is doing, but as we go along, at the very end, you're going to use the hand tamper again to finish the compaction. And again, you take the hand tamper, you go over it. We know that we know that it's being compacted in the proper manner. We just want to make sure that you guys know how it's being compacted. And again, one of the biggest problems is guys don't read the plan, and now they're laying the pavers instead of this way, they're laying it the other way. So there's right there. That's pretty much you failed the module because you're not reading the directions properly. So after this, you compact it. We tell you to put in the edge restraint. Put in the edge restraint. Again, either in the very beginning or at the end, you put in the edge restraint. Then we ask you to make sure that once everything is in place, you can cut a paver confidently and competently. That's the hard part because now there's a lot of different laws that are going out when it comes to dust, and if you can only use wet saws. Certain counties only allow you to use wet saws. So that might be a new shift in how things are being done. We're going to be bringing a wet saw there for you guys to use when you're on the job site. So we're going to make sure that you're cutting it and that you're not using your elbow to kind of cut it, push it through. Once you cut it without losing any fingers, you've used your eye protection, your ears, and your mouth protection. We're going to ask you then to break it down, which again, this is probably the worst part about this, is breaking it down. And sometimes Bob and I would, when we were doing it, we'll help out a little bit because, well, we've been through enough at this point. Now it's just flat out torture. Break down that site. So we'll ask you to break it down, have you put the pavers on one side. As Jody's now sitting there in his chair watching grading and drainage, and laughing at us, and asking us if we're done yet. And then we have a saw. And again, once the sand is picked up, the base is picked up, thrown to the side, you're now on your way and done. And again, the whole thing, realistically, if you've done pavers, worked with pavers, honest to God, it should only take you probably 40 minutes tops out of the 80 minutes. It's a small area. Again, 40 minutes is probably plenty amount of time to do this. Where guys really, where I see the time traps that they run into is looking at the design that's given to you, is not just looking at the design, but then going and saying, all right, am I doing this part properly? Am I doing that part? And you're going through